Hello and welcome to NeuroSavvy Live. I am your host and speaker, Keyshawn Hughes. I'm a certified neuro leadership coach and consultant. I established my organization, NeuroSavvy Leadership, in 2020 as I pivoted my career from being in corporate spaces and senior leadership to now coaching senior leaders and managers, people at different stages of their leadership journey to feel healthier, happier, and more confident at work in the way that they communicate and having more influence and positive impact in the spaces that they occupy. I'm here today to talk about a topic that has come up. It always comes up, confidence, some type of confidence. Typically when people come to me with coaching, for coaching, one of their leading goals that they want to walk away with after coaching is done is feeling more confident. And confidence shows up in lots of different ways. People typically have different definitions for what confident is for them, but really, I think it's feeling secure in your body, feeling secure in your decision making, communicating clearly and effectively. I think those are some key ways people want to show up with more confidence. They don't want to walk away from a conversation or a situation doubting what they did, doubting what they said, beating themselves up, feeling like they could. We all have those moments, don't we? Feeling like, oh, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have said that. That's natural. But really being anchored in your values, in who you are as a person, as a human being, you want to be able to do that and show up in that way as often as possible and walk away feeling proud of yourself, feeling secure in that what you came there to do, the goal that you had, the purpose that you were there to serve, got served. Right? So that's what we're talking about today, how to turn feedback anxiety into confidence, giving feedback. So you're a leader, you have a team that you're managing, and one of your direct reports isn't performing up to par, up to the standard that has been set. So you're having to have a conversation with that direct report about how to improve, ways to show up better and meet the goals that have been set for that person, that employee on the job. Or maybe you have some feedback for your manager. You work on a team and you want to manage up. You want to get something across. You have a goal in mind that you've set for yourself or a goal that's been set for you, and you want to provide some feedback to help move you closer to that goal. But you feel anxiety, right? You feel afraid. There are lots of different ways that anxiety shows up. Typically, when I'm coaching people, I ask them to identify where it's showing up for them in their body. Are they feeling tenseness in their shoulders? Are their fists balled up? Is there some type of rumbling in their tummy area, in their stomach? Are they having some digestive issues, sleep problems? All of those different ways that anxiety or discomfort, an extreme sense of distress shows up in your body can tell us where and how your nervous system is being activated. And there are ways that you can counteract those activations so that you can, once again, show up in a way that feels secure, that is in alignment with who you want to be in front of people, who you want to be, how you want to show up in conversations. So I'm going to talk about two different scenarios that have recently come up for me in conversations that I've had with leaders and give some general tips on how to lessen anxiety and fear and distress and upset when it comes to showing up and giving feedback, how to lessen that anxiety and how to show up with more confidence. So some general tips I would want to put out there are to identify what conversation is being had and needs to be had at the time. There is a book that someone recommended to me. Actually, one of my coaching clients recommended it to me that is on my reading list. I watched this TED Talk about this book from the author. I can't remember his name right now, but the book is called Super Communicators. And he has described that there are always three conversations going on at one time. There's an informational conversation, an emotional one, and an action-driven one. A lot of times where I meet my clients and where I have them make deep connections and transformation is to understand the emotional conversation that is happening within them and potentially within others when they're speaking about certain topics, when they're trying to get something done. Typically, if you can identify what that emotional space is, you have success. Those are your keys to success. But also the informational and action driven conversations are also very important too. I typically don't want to be in conversations where we're doing a lot of talking and no action is being tied to that, right? I don't want to walk away from a conversation, an exchange. First of all, I don't want to walk away from a one directional conversation where it's more of me talking than the other person or more of them talking than me. I would love for there to be a healthy back and forth. Where information is being exchanged, where it's purpose driven. It's not just airy fairy or information that's not going to be helpful, that's moving us towards a purpose. So that's important too. And then action driven. So what are we going to do about it? What am I going to do when I walk away? Those are three very important things to keep in mind when you want to show up with confidence. Think about the different conversations that will be happening all at once, those three different ones, and how you want to present information, how you want to connect and engage in those different ways. What kind of information do you want to provide? What emotional state do you want to be in? And do you want to co-create with someone? And then what action should be taken after that conversation is over? Having that in mind typically can help you feel more confident, more assured when you're communicating and you're sharing feedback, whether you're sharing feedback upwards or downwards. Also, I would just say preparation. Preparation is key. So like I said, think about those three different conversations happening, but preparing for the conversation is very important. One way that I help people as a coach, as a neuro coach, is before they go into a conversation, we talk about how they want to show up. We want to talk about the facts that are at play, some other perspectives, some things that we might not be considering, what blind spots are there, so that we can go in as prepared as possible, but comfortable enough to be able to manage our emotions so that we're showing up in the emotional state that we want to have that will help us be most successful, have the best amount of influence. Also, another thing that you should consider and that I think is very important in showing up with confidence and lessening anxiety and difficulty when it comes to sharing feedback is to identify a feedback model that works for you. This is a holistic brain hack, a whole brained leadership hack. When I say whole brain, we want to think about the logic side and then also the creative emotional side. Those represent two different sides of our brain that come together. And when they're both represented, we have a holistic leadership response. So we always want to consider the creative, the emotional, the intangible, along with logical, analytical steps. So find a feedback model that's comfortable for you. Many times, often in conversations about feedback, the feedback model that comes up for me it's an acronym that stands for SBI, Situation, Behavior, Impact. So when you're going to provide feedback to someone, anchor it in the situation. Recall to mind the situation you want to talk about so we can both have connection on what it is, the premise that we're discussing, and we can have that shared idea in mind. Talk about the behaviors that you noticed and the impact that it had. So that's a way to frame your conversation. So it's a container for all of those emotions. It's a container for that discomfort and anxiety. As you're preparing for the feedback that you want to share, find a model that works for you. And the SBI one is one that I like to share. Another one is the I like, what if, I wish. So it's a softer way to give feedback. Depending on your style of communication and your personality, you can start with, I really liked the way you showed up in the meeting earlier today. I wish that we could have covered more points that were notated on the agenda that weren't covered. So what if next time we assign those notes to someone? So to ensure that everything on the agenda is covered. That's a way to share feedback. That's a model. The I like, I wish, what if. You have situation, behavior, impact. I like, I wish, what if. And there are lots of others. I would encourage you to use a prompt for your Chat GPT or Gemini or whatever AI prompt system that you use, generative AI system that you use to be an idea partner or thought partner for you, or look on the Googles and look up feedback model and see what comes up for you and what would be most comfortable for you to show up with confidence when you're giving feedback. Okay, now story time. I have a coaching client that will not be named who did not receive this. This was a season for me where I was coaching several people who, when they received their annual reviews, were unhappy with the ratings. They thought they went into those conversations thinking they would receive one type of rating that was much higher than what they actually received. So imagine, maybe you yourself have had that experience before where you are really doing great work. You're hitting all your marks, you're building great relationships, you're getting great feedback from others about your work, and you expect that all to show up in your annual review, in the rating that you receive. Most organizations have some type of rating system. And it's time to have the conversation. Your manager sends you your rating before you talk, and you look at it and say, this can't be for me. This can't be my rating. Not me. I'm a superstar. Why do I have this mediocre rating in front of me? And so imagine what kind of emotion that will bring up for you. Once again, considering your emotional state is key when it comes to giving feedback with confidence. And so the client that I was coaching had this situation, and they were about to go into their manager meeting, and we just happened to have a coaching call 45 minutes before. So they were going to talk to me for 45 minutes, have a 15-minute break, and then talk to their manager about their rating. So something that was really important to them that they wanted to ensure that they had in check was their emotional state. They wanted to work through emotions in that coaching call to show up with confidence. So one way is to identify the gap. So where are you now emotionally? And that person was angry, was very frustrated and angry about the rating. So label that, put that out there, make it plain for yourself. And then we needed to know, well, what state did that person want to get to? What state did my client want to get to? And they wanted to feel calm. They wanted to come across with calmness and be clear in the way they communicated. And they wanted to lead the conversation. They wanted to make sure that they were moving the conversation along so that they can get the information they needed to the questions they had. They can get answers to the questions they had about their rating. So that's a key insight to remember. Consider what your emotional state is, and then identify the gap where you are now and where you want to be. And then we talked about what could you do to get there. I asked them, what can you do to get there? So talking was one way to help them get to that calm state from feeling frustrated. Journaling was another. Didn't have much time to journal, but they were taking notes during our call, which helped. There are a lot of neuroscience-backed studies that show how journaling can help us to relieve certain states, certain emotional states that we don't want to have. It'll help us close that gap and get to the emotional state we want to be in quicker. So they did that. And they also wanted to then talk to their partner, their spouse. And they felt like a quick boost in conversation pick me up from their spouse would be what was needed to get them to the place they wanted to be in before talking to their manager. And followed up a couple weeks later after that coaching call and asked how it went. And it went well. They were happy with the way they showed up. Still didn't change the rating, but they were happy with the way they showed up. 2 weeks after that, met on a coaching call. And guess what? Their manager had considered what was shared in that meeting and gave them a pay increase. So they didn't get the rating they wanted, but they got a pay increase to show that you are valued. We heard you. We want you here. We want to make sure you're happy. So your work does deserve some praise. It does deserve some reward. Can't give you that rating, in the form of a reward, but we can give you more money, which made my client very happy. So in that, we were able to show up in confidence in giving feedback. They were able to present the information that was important, manage their emotions, and then take action. Identify what actions could be taken in order to get them where they wanted to go to meet their goals and the organizational goals. So that's a success story of showing up with confidence and giving feedback with confidence. Managing that emotional state is key, particularly doing it with someone who can help you co-regulate. When we co-regulate, I show up to my coaching meetings in a calm emotional state. That energy is transferred to my coaching clients through mirror neurons and other things that are happening between our nervous systems. We create a joint nervous system, and that helps the person to get to the state that they want to be in. If I'm showing up calmly and I'm encouraging them, I'm asking questions to help them get to the root of what they want to have in their experience, and then they have action-driven practices that they can do that are unique to them, that they can then do with confidence and excel in, boom, you get a wonderful response. Those are the kind of results I get all the time, by the way, in my coaching, which makes me super happy. It just definitely keeps me committed to being a coach and committed to doing the work that I do. So that's an example of how to manage up and share feedback with confidence. Another leader that I'm in conversation with had to have a difficult conversation with a direct report recently. That report, that person was not showing up in the productivity measures that have been set. There are certain productivity metrics that need to be met weekly, daily, and the numbers are showing they're not meeting those at all. If productivities are that you have to do 10 of these things, they're doing half of that. They're doing 5. And it's been happening over time. And so the manager that I consult with, one of my clients, let me know they would have to have a conversation with their direct report. And it gave that manager some anxiety, some discomfort. They were not going to be comfortable having this conversation for several reasons. One is that they really like their direct report. They really like this team member. They really like this employee. They have a strong relationship, and that stood the test of time over some years. And we talked about ways to go into that feedback conversation where they could feel confident, where they didn't go in feeling discouraged, feeling disappointed in their direct report. We talked about the type of mindset that would be useful for the feedback conversation. And it was one to move from feeling disappointed to feeling curious, because we can make assumptions about why the direct report wasn't meeting their numbers. But it's important to have open-ended questions and have an open mind, because honestly, we don't know. There's so many things that happen in our own individual daily lives that everyone doesn't have privy to. We're not all aware of what's happening. And so as a manager, I don't know everything that's happening in my team members' lives. And so I need to go and approach feedback conversations with that open-mindedness, with that sense of curiosity. I also need to be very clear. So I can't mince words. I need to be very clear about what needs to be done. We are here. We need to get to here. Ask a lot of open-ended questions and move from the state of deliberative mindset, like where you're deliberating options, you're deliberating what could be, what has been, to implementation, having an implementation mindset. So this is once again action-driven. It's action driven. So it's very important also for leaders when giving feedback to ensure that they've created a sense of psychological safety for their team, to be honest with them, to be open to them, to be open to learn, and to identify ways when you're asking questions and you're being curious to activate their growth mindset. We want you to grow. And this was the type of language that manager used. We language. Instead of just pointing the finger at that team member, the manager explained why it was important to both of them for the direct report to succeed. What he would do to help him succeed over time. So those are some things to keep in mind when having leadership conversations. As a leader, check your own emotional state and identify ways to close the gap. What is the gap? I'm very disappointed in my team member. What would be a more useful mindset and state of emotion to be in when having this conversation? It would be one of openness and curiosity and encouragement. And encouragement. Not only am I going to ask you questions, I'm going to partner with you on the answers you gave as to why there is a challenge with your productivity. And together, we will get to where we want to be. We will get you to where you need to be. Understanding that this we takes a both of us. So it's not just me who's going to increase your productivity, and it's not just you. It's we. We're working together. So those are some things to keep in mind when having helpful feedback conversations. Create psychological safety. Practice first. Have someone, a thought partner, a coach even, that can help you think through ways to identify what your honest, actual emotional state is and how to close that gap and get to a better state that's more conducive for positive results. Now we'll see. We'll see in a couple of weeks if that direct report is able to be more productive. I'm curious to see in the ways that my other client had success. She was able to get a raise after getting a not so great, according to her, feedback rating, to now receiving a bonus, a pay jump. I want to see how this manager that I gave feedback to, how their direct report productivity numbers will work, having had this feedback conversation with them, this way to prepare for feedback, to be more confident and get the results that they're looking for. So I hope that was helpful. I'm always open to having these kind of conversations and sharing what can be done. Chevy, thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad that you're here. Chevy Maxwell. She is a business development coach. She works with tech leaders on getting grants and money to support your initiatives. Please reach out to her on LinkedIn. I'm so happy that you're here supporting me. Thank you so much. And Rhonda, thank you so much. You said, yes, clear is kind when giving feedback. I love that phrase, clear is kind. This has been coming up as a theme in several of my NeuroSavvy Live conversations that I've been having, is clarity. Clarity, especially in times that seem very chaotic, that are very distressing, that are very stressful. It is very important when you can't create a sense of certainty for yourself and others, you can create a sense of clarity. And clarity can lead to more certainty about the decisions we make, about the choices we have when we're navigating these very treacherous streets in the workplace these days, right? When we're navigating ways to show up as our best selves. So Dr. Rhonda Anderson has a book that is published and launching today. So please check her out on LinkedIn, The Influential Leader. She is an awesome leadership expert. Thank you so much for joining, Rhonda. Dr. Rhonda Anderson, thank you so much for joining. Chevy, my fellow neuroscience-based coach and leader and consultant. I want to have more of these conversations. Please tell me in the comments, what's a topic that you want to hear about? For the last couple of weeks, I've talked about confidence in different ways to show up more confidently. My last NeuroSavvy Live was how to help women become more confident utilizing AI and being more AI literate. Today was how to lessen and turn feedback anxiety into confidence, having confident feedback conversations. And I gave several strategies on how to do that. So I'm open to hearing what you want to hear. You can join me every 2 weeks, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time for these conversations, where I'll share brain-based tools and techniques to help you show up better as a leader, to help you show up more confidently and feeling, like I said, more healthy and happy at work. It is my absolute pleasure to do this work that I do now in the world. I work with organizations as a consultant, developing group coaching programs. I facilitate group coaching experiences for leaders, and I love the feedback. It fuels me. It fuels my confidence in knowing that people start out one way, very unsure, sometimes even negative about their leadership, particularly if they're new to managing people, to leaving those experiencing a lot of confidence, a lot of assurance, having tools and ways to navigate the difficulty and the ambiguity that comes with being a leader. Dr. Anderson says conflict resolution is a great topic. Then that's what I'm going to talk about the next time I come on here. That's what I will talk about. Thank you so much. I think you're amazing too, Dr. Anderson. You are everything. I cannot wait to join you at your book launch later today. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. Check out, like I said, Chevy, Rhonda on LinkedIn and all other platforms you find them on. Please follow me at Be NeuroSavvy on Instagram, NeuroSavvy Leadership on LinkedIn, and of course, Keyshawn Ridgel. He's on LinkedIn as well. I'm happy to have these conversations. The next time we'll talk will be in 2 weeks, April 20. Well, let me look and see. In 2 weeks, on Thursday, 1 p.m., we'll talk about conflict resolution. So that'll be on May 1st. So the first day in May. See you again, same time, same place. Thank you for joining NeuroSavvy Live. Talk soon. Bye.